Welcome to Heaven and Hell at 43. I am your host, Laura Edmonds, and I'm super excited to be sharing these extra special love stories throughout May in the lead up to my 43rd birthday. Remember, if you enjoy this episode, you can enjoy lots more, so make sure you subscribe wherever it is that you are enjoying this video. Today's episode comes from somebody else who's very close. I mean, not geographically close at the moment, but she's one of my sisters. She's going to introduce herself as my sister, so you'd have known that anyway. But I'm delighted and really excited to get to share stories. And quite candidly, the story that she shared is not one I've heard before, and also is not the one I was expecting her to tell. She has a really cool story, and I'm going to tell it to you very quickly. When the man who is now her husband, she wanted to know if he was going to be the man for her. They met in Bible college, and so she did a Gideon. She laid out a fleece and she said, okay, if I get up in the morning and the fleece is wet, that means I'm meant to be with him. If it's not, I'm not. And she did it, and God honoured that. And then she did it again, just to be sure. And so I thought that might be the story that she would share, because it's a real tangible example of God honouring her request and being faithful to that. But instead, she has another story of God's love and how faithful he is. And it's just as beautiful and just as delightful. So without further ado, let's hand over to my sister, Laura.
Hello, my name's Laura. I'm Elle's sister, and she's asked me to share with you something about the love of God in a story from my life. So I'm not as comfortable in front of the camera as she is, so please bear with me. I'm standing out in my garden deliberately in front of this mural that we painted last year in lockdown, that's got it just reminds us, we look out of our window and we see this lovely rainbow, and you can see all the images behind me, and that just reminds me of the love of God for a start. But that's not my story, so it's a little sneaky extra one in there. Really, the thing that speaks to me about the love of God is the sun in the sky. God's been speaking to me a lot over recent last couple of years, really, when I'm out in nature. And we had the privilege of going to Israel 18 months ago, and we saw the most beautiful sunsets and sunrises like I've never seen before in my life. And I realised something of the faithfulness of God and the love of God as I stared at these beautiful sunsets. I couldn't describe them to you, it was gorgeous. And I'd watch the sun go down over the water from our balcony each evening, and I would just be reminded of the faithfulness and the love of God, because that sun which rises every day and which sets every night, we have no doubt that it will do that every day. We know it will do it every day. We have no doubt in our minds, and yet God's love is far more faithful than that to us. And so I then came home from Israel and still saw some lovely sunrises and sunsets, but never quite as beautiful as I saw in Israel. It's absolutely gorgeous. But something about the sunsets that I see now and the sunrises that I see now, or the sun peeping out from the clouds now, God still speaks to me through it. You know, I see, even when I see the sun just trying to come out from behind a cloud and it's a bit of a grey day, I just have that sense of, do you know, God is there, God's love is there, God is all around me and always with me and will always love me. And when I see that sun and then suddenly it breaks through the clouds and I feel that warmth on my face, I just feel like God is smiling on me. And probably as I'm saying all this, this sounds really cheesy, and do you know what, it probably is, but this is how God has really spoken to me over the last 18 months through seeing the sun. And as faithful as the sun is, as faithful as the sun rises and sets each day, is just a tiny little picture or glimpse of how faithful God is, of how much he loves us. And so that's really what I wanted to share with you today, and I want to encourage you as you go about your day, that the sun is always there. On those grey days when you don't see the sun is still there. It's just behind the clouds, and the sun has not changed. The distance we are between us and the sun may change, and that may impact how much we feel the sun. And in the same way, we may not always feel God's love in the same intensity, but it's always there. He hasn't changed. He's always there. He's always with us, and his love is everlasting, always eternal. And I struggle to think of the idea of eternal as we don't really know anything that doesn't begin and doesn't end in this life, and yet I fully trust and fully believe that God's love is eternal, that his love was for me back before he even made the world, and it just blows my mind to think that he will love me always. And so I'm going to stop here. It's not my 5 minutes now, and it's shorter than that, and I don't want to go on and just repeat myself, but I will just once more repeat myself and just say that God's love is amazing. And as you look at the sun, as you see the sun, as you feel the warmth on your face on certain days, and you go out in the sunshine, just please be reminded of the faithfulness of God, because of how much He loves you. As you feel that warmth on your face, that you're reminded that God's love is even greater and even more faithful than that sunshine which is there every day, which will never ever go. God's love is far greater, far more for you than we can really comprehend in our tiny little human brains. So bless you all, and thank you for listening, and enjoy the sunshine.
Some of you who are listening and watching will have heard me use the phrase cloud porn before. Particularly when the sun is setting and there's the clouds are in the sky, and there's like these pinks and these oranges and these amazing colours, and I might like to imagine God sloshing all the colours around like with a paintbrush. I call it cloud porn. I shared that with Laura after she shared her video, but I thought it was a really delightful reminder yet again of God loving us in a way that really touches our heart. Quite transparently, I haven't seen a sunrise or a sunset in Israel, but we have some rather delightful sunrises and sunsets here in Wales as well. And the other thought that just pops in my head, that same sun that she saw in Israel is the same sun that you can see right now outside. How cool is that? Just amazing. So big thank you to Laura for her story today, and of course, if you know somebody who would benefit from hearing Laura's story, please do share it with them. And of course, if you're enjoying these, make sure you follow along, like, subscribe, whatever that looks like within the context of the platform where you are enjoying this, because quite transparently, it's going out to a few different places. So anyway, in the meantime, thank you for being here, and I'm excited to share the next story with you very, very soon. In the meantime, take care. Bye-bye.